Welcome to the Boss Up Talk podcast. This podcast spotlights unapologetic creatives, entrepreneurs, and Black women founders who have taken the leap of faith. Boss Up Talk is here to help you find your creative gift, develop it, and build a sustainable lifestyle from it. In each episode, we'll discuss the mindset, habits, routines, branding tricks, marketing tips, business strategies, systems, and processes that help you make money doing what you love. Let's boss up. Hi, welcome. Welcome to the new episode of the Boss Up Talk podcast. I'm Tee Westbrook, the founder of Cool Girls Create. And today I am sitting here with Bobby. Bobby, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks, T. Nice to be here, be part of your program. Yeah, my name is Bobby Wallace. Robert to my mother, but Bobby to my friends, Bobby Wallace. I am a serial entrepreneur, T, who started out at a young age, as an entrepreneur, did the corporate route through IBM, Procter & Gamble, DuPont. But I always knew I was going to be, in a role as an entrepreneur. So I've been able to start and build a couple of businesses, primarily in technology, information technology, and in energy. And I've written 8 books. 6 have been published, and they all talk about the challenges and the secrets for success for entrepreneurs, particularly women and people of color. And so my research in grad school, when I was in grad school for business up at Dartmouth College, I started my research there back in the 80s and have continued to do the research since that time. And I'm passionate and committed into helping women and people of color to build successful businesses and to be economic players in our economy. So I'm delighted to be part of your program this evening, and look forward to having this conversation.
Yes. Well, thank you for being here. So let's dive right into it. So one of the books that you wrote was Black Wealth, Your Road to Small Business Success.
Yes.
And so I would like to start there. One, I would like to talk about, Black wealth building in general. I think it's so important for us, especially me with my generation, to really focus on building wealth and the legacy. And then let's go into, talking about what tips we can give to small businesses to help them be more successful and become the big players that we need them to be in order to build these legacies.
Exactly right. That's right. So Black Wealth, Your Road to Small Business Success. That was my second book that I actually wrote. My first book, which came out in the 90s, was called Black Wealth Through Black Entrepreneurship. And the second book was a follow-on to that first book. And what you find, as you mentioned, T, my focus on wealth, not on income, not on dollars, but on. And my hypothesis is that to build wealth in America, the best way to do that is through entrepreneurship. And if you look at the path that most successful business people have taken, it has been through entrepreneurship. That is, in fact, the American way. And so my focus has been, in my research, is to look at the unique challenges that women and people of color face in building successful businesses that will allow them to create wealth and to be an economic player. Now keep in mind, T, I started this work back in the 80s when it was not, when you didn't hear much about, African-American entrepreneurship or women. I remember being in business school, and we were getting, we would get these speakers come in, people like Bill Gates and other the leaders who were leading the tech revolution. And I noticed when they came to my school at Dartmouth, they had no people of color on their teams, and they had very few women. And I just said I made up in my mind at that time, this cannot stand. We cannot have this. This has to change. And thus became the beginning of my passion to research, to write, and to teach in this particular area. I believe that wealth is the biggest challenge, the most important challenge, wealth creation and wealth accumulation in our nation today for people of color and for women. It does no good to have the right to vote. It does no good to be able to live in any neighborhood that you desire. It does no good to be able to travel and do all the things that you think you want to do. They have the right to do that if you have no economic resources to enjoy those things. And so I think that it's really important why we emphasize the wealth creation aspect to this, because that's what allows us to make that happen. And so I think that we need to have that focus.
You're absolutely right. So, so I'm a first generation college student, right? I have a account.
So was I, T. So was I.
Yeah, so and a lot of my peers are, or they're first to, get an official career in corporate. Like I was in corporate America. I worked as a financial analyst. I was the only Black woman in a lot of rooms on a lot of floors. And so it became very taxing on me and my spirit to be in those environments.
Yes.
And I chose to leave corporate America almost 3 years ago, to become an entrepreneur, because I felt as if what you said, one, women in general aren't in many leadership roles when it comes to big companies, tech companies, a lot of those companies that built the wealth that you're talking about. And so I think it's so important to focus on those things. But for me, one of the difficult challenges has been how to do that, right? So there's so much information out there about, building wealth. But when it comes to being a Black woman or a Black entrepreneur, there are so many roadblocks, right? And then we don't know where to start. So what advice can you give when it comes to being an entrepreneur and focusing on building that wealth?
Absolutely. That's a great question, T. And it is the question of this conversation, I think. So let me give you 3 things, T, that I teach my MBA students, and I teach the folks that I mentor and I coach, the young entrepreneurs. So that there are 3 things that you want to get right. Number 1 is you have to perfect and expand the ability to dream and to dream big.
Yes.
See, the dream is what gives you and I a destination point, right? So we're in the present today.
Right.
But a dream implies that there's some future event that is significant for us and to us that we want to see happen. In this case, it's to create a business that you can create wealth, you can create jobs, you can take care of your family, you can have an impact on society, right? But the dream has to be big enough, T, and it has to be robust enough that it is something that makes you get up in the morning, hop out of the bed, and continue your journey to make this dream a reality. All right. That's the first step. And what you find, T, is in our country and maybe in the world, the older we get, the less we dream. And the reason that is, I believe, is that as you go through life and as you get, you deal with the challenges of life, and you got a mortgage, you got a car, you got kids, you got a spouse, you got all these things. And the pressures of life result in people losing the ability to dream. And that's why, as children, you remember when you were a child, and I was a child, man, I dreamt that I was Superman, that I could fly, off of tall buildings, and I could run. I mean, I had the ability to dream. And so we have to rekindle that energy, that dream energy, to allow us to dream. That's the first step, T, I think. The second step is to move backwards and say, so this is create the future, and now I'm moving backwards. I'm moving backwards now to the present. And what I'm saying there, T, is that we have to be honest and realistic about where we are today.
Okay. Like
you, I came through the corporate environment too. I was at IBM before I became a tech entrepreneur. In IBM, when I was there as an engineer at IBM, I assessed my situation at IBM. I looked at what IBM could do for me and help me in preparing to be an entrepreneur. And that became my assessment of my present condition.
Okay.
So now I got 2 data points. I've got the dream, which is out there in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my present, which is a honest, realistic assessment of who I am, what I am, and what constraints I have to deal with. So,
Okay.
for example, when I was IBM, I knew I had to raise, before I left IBM to become an entrepreneur, I knew I had to raise a certain amount of money to start my business. In my case, it was about $100,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did I do, T? I had to go out and put a second mortgage on my home. I went to some friends and family to put in a few dollars. So that was my analysis of my present condition, which allowed me to have clarity about where I'm starting from. That's the second data point. The third data point is the bridge. It's the bridge. The bridge is, how do I get from where I am today, in my case, engineer IBM, to this future dream to start a IT tech cybersecurity company?
Right.
The bridge becomes your plan. It's your plan. It is the business plan. It is just the business strategy. It is, how am I going to get from point A to point B? Now, right. One thing I would tell you, T, that I didn't learn when I was younger and starting out, which I wish I had learned it, but I didn't. It took me longer to learn this, mm-hmm. is that you can get much further faster if you perfect the art of building alliances and partnerships.
Okay.
That's why, T, my 4th book I wrote was a book on strategic alliances and partnerships for entrepreneurs. It is a how-to book. It is how do you create alliances and partnerships to help you build your business. That's why I wrote that book. And mm-hmm. that book's been translated into Mandarin Chinese. It's been translated into Russian. I've mm-hmm. taught this course all over the world. It works. It makes sense. Right. I just wished that I had learned it as a younger man, but I didn't. So it took me longer to learn, but I did. But I'm telling to your listeners now.
Well, right.
T. Go ahead, T. I'm sorry. Go ahead, T.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we have this mentality that we have to do everything ourselves, right?
That's right.
To save, they're not going to, do it right, or they're not going to see the vision. All these lies that we tell ourselves.
Right.
And so I've learned as an entrepreneur not pretty early. Well, it's still early for me, but I've learned that my business has grown tremendously with just doing collaborations and partnerships.
You bet.
It's a part of not only are you creating these strategic alliances to expand your business, but it's allowing you an opportunity to continue to market yourself, market your brand. And when you don't have money, or when you don't have, the budget, or when you don't have, the big, whatever you need for, to accomplish a goal, it's always nice to have somebody who has, a similar vision that you can work with to achieve, whatever that goal is. So
Agreed.
I agree.
That is the, I teach a course on building alliances and partnerships. And I tell you, T, there are many lessons that I could teach, but that's one that I think carries so much weight. If you as a young entrepreneur can just learn that and learn how to create it and to shape it, boy, it can make your life a lot easier and your business growth a lot better. There's an old saying, this old African proverb, I believe, and it's one that I use often. It says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far,
yep,
go together.
Yes.
And that is so very true and so much true. And I think that we oftentimes get frustrated. But I'm suggesting that we can go a lot further if we go together. Right.
I definitely agree. Well, on that same note, is there anything in particular that you can pinpoint when it comes to starting out looking for partnerships or strategic alliances? I know for me, the more I reached out to people and put my message out there, the easier it became
Right.
And eventually, those partnerships just come to you.
Yes.
But is there any advice you can give to a new entrepreneur that's just starting out, like how to put themselves out there, or first step to take?
Yes, ma'am. Well, there are three things, maybe more, but I'll give you three things, T, that I think are important. Number one is you have to be intentional about wanting to identify and build alliances and partnerships. So you can't be like I was when I was starting out as a younger man, right? Where I figured I was the smartest guy in the room. I work hard. I know what I'm doing. I don't need any help. I can do it myself, right?
That's all of us, isn't it?
Yeah. But in my case, it was a mistake. It was a mistake because I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, right? And I didn't know as much as I thought I knew, and I learned the hard way. I started 5 businesses that failed before I found my first successful business. And so I think I would have had a better track record had I been intentional about building alliances and partnerships. The second thing I would tell your audience, T, is you have to date. You have to create and find alliances and partnerships. You have to date. Now, I'm not sure how many of your listeners are single and they date, but dating is a process. And you don't always, when you date, some people you meet, you can't connect with, and others you love them at first sight. It's the same way in business. You've got to date. You have to date businesses, and I use the system I use in my book. I call it the color balls system, where I give people a methodology that says as you're meeting companies and people, you quickly put them into one of your buckets, right? You got a red bucket, yellow bucket, and a green bucket, right? So you meet somebody, meet a business, and gut, you just know this doesn't make sense. This doesn't fit. They would go into your red bucket, all right? Person you meet, business you meet, you say, there may be something there, but maybe not yet. You put them in your yellow bucket,
right?
The yellow balls. But your green people and your green buckets, those are the men and women you meet. Those are the companies you you interface with, and you know right away, boy, this is great. The chemistry is great. The timing is right. The vibe is good. He or she's a good person. I can trust them. Man, let's do this thing now, right? And that becomes the green person. But you can't get this volume unless you date, right? You got a business date. So I recommend that your listeners, they consider dating. So you got to attend these networking events, T. You got to put, like you did, put yourself out there, let people, don't be bashful, reach out to people like me and others who can share ideas and thoughts. You got to be aggressive with that, right? That's the second thing. Third thing is this. You have to find your alpha project.
Okay.
Your alpha project. What is that, T? It is, you've got to see, talk is cheap. So we can talk about getting together, doing an alliance, doing a partnership, working together, collaborating, all that. We can talk all day long, but nothing will happen until you take action. And I call that the alpha project. And what I mean by that is bite off a little project. So if let's say you find someone that you think might be a good partner to you. You say, okay, let's find the alpha project, the first project that we can do together. Usually it's a small project, so it's less risk for the players. And you date and you get to know each other, right? And it's low risk, so it may be a low dollar amount as far as money capital at risk. It may be low risk as far as success or failure, but it's low risk typically. And you engage and you get to know one another, and from that you'll know if that person or company is the right person for you or not.
Right. Those are all great tips. I'm just soaking it all in. So one of the things you mentioned while you were giving your spiel about partnerships and alliances, you talked a little bit about failure. That struck something in me because
I'm a perfectionist.
Right.
I'm afraid of failure, and I think a lot of my audience might be the same way as well. So, one of the quotes that is always in my head is "fail forward," right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, do you have any insight or advice that you can give for entrepreneurs or new business owners who are afraid of failure or who are perfectionists? How do we get them out there to take action, like you said?
Well, failure, in my view, T, failure is part of the process of being successful, right? Because one, failure makes you appreciate success a lot better when it does come. All right, that's one thing. Failure is part of the process. I remember they interviewed Thomas Edison when he was doing his various experiments, and they were asking him, well, sir, you failed so many times. What kept you going? He said, no, he said, I didn't fail. He said, he was talking, he had tried like 500 times to find a solution to create the light bulb. And guy said, well, you failed all these times. What kept you going? He said, well, I didn't fail. He said, I just found 500 ways that didn't work. Right.
Exactly.
So 501 way did work. And so that's a perspective. And so I think for most of us, and I would really admonish your listeners to really heed this, is that no, nobody wants to fail. Nobody likes failure, me included. I mean, I hate it. I hate to lose. I'm an athlete. Well, I'm a former athlete. But, I hate to lose, and but losing and failure is part of the process. What you have to do, you have to learn from every setback that you have. Right. And you have to adjust your strategy based upon what you learned from the setback. Mm-hmm. And now I will say this also, T, and this may be a little hard, but if you are unable as an entrepreneur to handle failure, to handle setbacks or disappointment, then you do not want to become an entrepreneur.
I was just thinking that today to myself. I said, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint-hearted, okay?
No,
you have to, it's like being a wolf.
That's exactly right. That's right. And T, what happens, T, is people tend to see all the glitter of being an entrepreneur, right? They may see the final case of, the house, the car, and all that kind of stuff, right? But what they don't see, T, and you can probably appreciate this, I know I can, what they don't see are the tears that are shed when things don't go well.
Exactly.
The pain and uncertainty that you deal with when you have to tell your family, as I did, that this is not going to be a good Christmas for us. And I have 5 kids, T. There were some Christmases where business was not going good. And so the conversation went, well, this is not going to be our best Christmas. See, people don't see those part of being an entrepreneur, right? They just see all the glitter, but it's not all glitter.
Or what they need to be success. Yes.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's true.
Yes. So this has been a great conversation. Let's dive into one more topic before I let you go. Let's talk a little bit about practical day-to-day tools that you can use as an entrepreneur to elevate your business. I know we talked about mindset, we talked about partnerships and alliances, we talked about having the ability to not be afraid to fail. But let's talk about, some practical tools that you can use, especially in today's climate where we're working from home.
Right.
Where we have to deal with digital marketing or social media. And a lot of business owners that I know just feel that they don't have the resources or the tools to take their businesses to the next level. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, T, that's a great question, T. And I think I can't think of a better time in human history than now to be an entrepreneur. I mean, think about it, T. See, I'm old enough to remember when there were no PCs, when there were no smartphones, when there, I remember where we used to be as a society and a nation. And I look at now, T, the tools we have. I mean, you take your smartphone out, you can do literally, T, any function that you need to do as a business person on your smartphone. We actually started a company years ago on a smartphone platform that designed an application that would do. Actually, my third son, was the brainchild. He's the engineer behind this, where you could order food over your smartphone. You could order, and have food delivered to you. Now that's pretty common today, T. But think about 15 years ago. That was not common. All right. So my son, and we invested in his business, created this software platform called Fango. And that platform, make a long story short, was purchased by a company called Grubhub.
Oh.
By Grubhub before they went public.
Yes.
So what I share that story to you to make the point. We have such great technology at our tools now. I mean, take your social media platforms. So every business should have their triggers on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok. And I mean, it's so many ways to get through the noise of the market to get your message out to your key folks.
Right.
The second thing I would say, T, tool is the democratization, excuse me, of resources. I give you an example, T.
Okay.
I've written 8 books. My first 4 books, I did it the old-fashioned way, right? That is, I wrote them. I went to publisher, and they signed me up as an author, gave me an advance, and we went back and forth. Now, the books I'm writing now, T, you know how I do it? I'm doing it through democratization of resources. What do I mean by that? Well, when I need a book cover design, I go to a tool called Upworks, where I can tap into the smartest people on the planet in India, China, Russia, Mississippi, California. It doesn't matter. The democratization of talent and resources has never been at this point in human history. Right. When I need work done on those specialty areas, T, I go to the cloud, and I can find the talent I need to do whatever I want to do in business and writing and in publishing. So though we have such power at our fingertips today, T, that we never had before. What we're missing is dreaming and the intentionality, right, of being clear and having clarity on what it is we're trying to achieve. Right.
And one of those, so with the dreaming, as a creative, right, it's a lot easier for me to be a dreamer.
Right.
What I've struggled with in the past is not being surrounded by people who may believe in the dream, or even just maybe they're just neutral,
Right.
So to close this thing on out, let's just talk a little bit more about being a dreamer.
Yes,
right?
Ma'am.
What positive word can you close this out with that can inspire our listeners to go for whatever it is that they want to go for in 2021 and go big,
Yes, ma'am. Well, you know what, T, I will share with them the advice I wrote in my first book, Black Wealth Through Black Entrepreneurship. And because I get that question a lot, especially from young entrepreneurs, and I teach them and I tell them, right? And that's this: to do what you can with what you have, where you are, and do it now. See, do what you can with what you have, where you are, and do it now. See, sometimes, T, many of us, we wait until, right? So when I get to a certain level in my job, then I want to leave. When I raise this amount of money, then I will go. When I have enough partners and investors, I'm going to do this or do that. All that's fine. But what I tell people is it's more important to get started, to start the process. When I was at IBM looking to become a tech entrepreneur, I was an engineer at IBM. Do what you can with what you have where you are right now. So what did I do? Number one, I knew the money I needed to raise. I began that process. Two, I knew that there were clients that I had for as an IBM engineer that because of our relationship, that when I left to become my own business, that I could attract some of those customers to come and support me. Mm-hmm. I knew that I need to have relationships and partnerships for people to help me. So I established banking relationships while I was still at IBM. You know what I'm saying? So there's a level of intentionality that you do what you can with what you have where you are and do it now.
Right.
And if we do that, T, enough times, what happens, T, is it builds upon itself, right? And the next time you do it, it's going to be bigger, badder, and grander.
Yes.
So the more you do, the more you get.
Yes. So you keep saying, intentionality, and in my mind, I just keep hearing be strategic. I think that's just the biggest thing that a lot of entrepreneurs or creatives, they just don't have that strategic mind, and so you just have to be intentional. And if you don't know, go find out, because that information is at your fingertips. So,
That's right. T. It also means, T, to focus. See, another mistake I made starting out years ago, T, was my eyes were bigger than my abilities, I guess, or in other words, I was trying to do so many things because I thought I could do them.
Yes.
And maybe I could, T, but I couldn't do all of them well.
Exactly.
What I wish I had done, T, as a younger entrepreneur is to narrow my focus and to drill down deep in that particular area, right? And I think that I would have gotten better traction quicker had I done that. But I was too broad because I thought I could do it, and I did a lot of things, but not so well. Narrow your focus and then drill down deep and be an expert in that particular area. That will serve you better, I think.
Yes, that's great advice. Especially for, again, like creatives. I know for me, I struggle with being the Jill of all trades. So I'm like, I can do this, I can do that. I'm a techie, I can graphic design a little bit. But what is happening, like you said, is you stretch yourself too thin, and you don't have, high quality products, or like you said before, you don't have that focus.
That's right.
So it's so important to just focus, like you said. Where can we find you? Let our audience know, what you have going on right now and where they can find you.
Absolutely. So my website is www.robertwallace.com, and Wallace is WALLACE.com. And from there, they can get to our tech company, to our energy company. They can see the books that I've written, where I'm speaking, where I'm teaching. And this is an exciting time, T, because we for the first time, in my opinion, are in a truly global community. I mean, I travel all over the world. Last year, so I took a 6-month sabbatical, hopped on a ship, and traveled around the world because I'm working on my new book on global entrepreneurship. Okay. And it was one of the most enlightening and humbling experience of my life. And so this is a great time to be an entrepreneur. This is a great time for people like you and I to be talking, and your audience. You've got older entrepreneurs, younger ones. If we can bring all that together, T, and share the wisdom, boy, I tell you, we could change this world.
Yes, I totally agree. And I am just very thankful to have you here on my platform. Thank you again for joining me, and we are signing out. Continue to be bosses.